Where silence settles, a return to the unchanged, the unspoken, and the spaces we leave behind when memory no longer demands to be remembered. I returned because there was no one else to unlock the house. The road into town wound in the same familiar curves it always had. I took the long way, not out of nostalgia, but because my instincts had never changed. This route was muscle memory, not sentiment. The town itself looked untouched by time's ambition. The narrow streets still felt too small for modern life. The grocery store with its rusted shutters hadn't been repainted or replaced. Trees leaned along the sidewalk as though weariness had taken root in their trunks. Time hadn't moved forward here. It had only worn thinner, like fabric stretched over years of use. The house sat quietly, smaller than I remembered. It wasn't just perception. The roof drooped. The paint peeled like it was sloughing off a past life. The yard was dry, the grass breaking apart underfoot like old parchment. All the places where life used to push up had turned hard and silent. Standing before it, I felt nothing immediate, no rush of memory or ache of loss, just the recognition of a structure left to itself too long. Inside, the air was thick, but not heavy with any particular scent, only the quiet pressure of long neglect. The curtains still hung closed, the fabric stiff from lack of wind. Every step on the floor reminded me of where I was. Each creak was exactly where I remembered it. Nothing had been fixed. The hallway light still flickered and failed. The kitchen table still wobbled under the weight of its history. Everything I had left behind had simply stopped moving, as if frozen mid-breath. The past hadn't been erased, it had just settled into the corners. I moved through the rooms with a detached purpose. This was not a return, it was an obligation. My mother had passed 2 weeks before, and the house had remained untouched since. I was not here to mourn, just to clear and close. My brother had said he would come too, but he hadn't yet. It didn't matter much. We hadn't spoken in years, not out of malice but inertia. The silence between us had grown too wide for small bridges. I hadn't reached out to him, and I didn't expect he would reach out to me. I chose the room at the end of the hallway, the smallest one. The mattress was as I had left it, thin and soft in the wrong places. The sheets were stiff, like paper. I lay on top of them and stared at the ceiling, following the long crack from the corner to the center, watching as it split the surface in uneven lines. It took my mind somewhere quiet, the shapes of the ceiling bleeding into each other until nothing held. Morning came slowly. I opened the windows and let in what wind there was. Light sliced through the dust, lifting the stillness for a moment. The house seemed to exhale, though weakly. I boiled water and made tea in a chipped mug I didn't remember owning. I drank half and forgot the rest. The rhythm of the house was slow, reluctant to return. The work began with hesitation. Sorting is never clean. I started with the uncontroversial things: clothes, books, and receipts folded into drawers. I didn't examine most of it. I opened boxes and moved their contents into piles. Keep, donate, discard. Sometimes I paused, not because of what I saw, but because of the weight of what I didn't expect to feel. Certain objects carried a presence: a coat, a recipe card, the smooth edge of a letter opener. These things didn't speak, but they hummed with long ownership. Her winter coat was still in the closet, the arms folded unnaturally from time, one button nearly detached. I touched it, held it, and replaced it without intention. It wasn't about grief. It was about the strange stillness of something once vital. The room didn't change after that. It just grew quieter. My brother arrived the next day. I heard the door, the steps, the same sound we had made 1,000 times in childhood. He didn't look for me. I didn't look for him. We had always existed like adjacent walls, near, parallel, never touching. We began the work in mutual silence. I sorted, he carried. There was no need to talk, no need to ask who would keep what. It was all muscle memory, like everything else. The years between us hadn't changed the way we worked in shared space. Efficient, distant, careful. Photographs appeared eventually, tucked in the back of a drawer. Children who used to be us. Our mother, young in a way I had never seen. A single image of him and me on the porch steps, seriously watching something not in the frame. I left it on the table. It stayed there like a placeholder for something unsaid. Neither of us moved it. We slept in our old rooms, the ones that had been ours in adolescence. He took our father's. I kept mine. Meals were separate and brief. I noticed he always used the same plate, washed it, and left it to dry in the same place. I never touched it. My plate stayed on the other end of the rack. Small habits told more about him than any words could have. We didn't require updates. We weren't strangers, just people who had agreed to stop explaining themselves. The attic was last. We both knew it. A single box waited against the far wall. We ignored it for days, surrounding it with other tasks, as if by doing so we could delay its truth. But eventually, I carried it down. He didn't speak or follow. I opened it at the kitchen table, not expecting much but aware it had been left for a reason. Inside were the remnants of days that had faded. Letters, brittle with years, receipts for things I couldn't remember, a pair of old glasses, a photo album I had never seen. Its cover was soft with wear. I turned the pages slowly, taking in each face, each unlabeled moment. Our father is near a river. Our mother laughed. Blurred edges and unspoken stories. No annotations, just images out of time. I closed the album and set it down beside my forgotten mug. That night, a new photo appeared on the windowsill. I didn't know which one. I didn't ask. It leaned, not quite upright, like it wasn't certain it belonged. Days passed this way, steady and slow. The house shifted almost imperceptibly. Light changed its angles, shadows moved more gently, the air smelled less like distance. Something else had begun to take root. Stillness, not of absence, but of calm. I dreamed of the hallway once. It stretched endlessly, doors closed on every side. I walked without opening them, each one familiar, each one untouched. I woke before reaching the end. On the 6th day, I stepped into the backyard for the first time since returning. The ground was brittle, the soil hardened into silence. Nothing had grown for years. The flower beds once tended with care were now faded outlines, dry scars in the earth. Near the back fence, I found the small patch where we had buried the dog we'd had as children. There was a flat stone we'd once placed there, meant to mark the spot. Grass had grown around it unevenly, trying to erase what little remained of memory. I didn't clear it. I only stood there, letting the wind pass through the dead air as if something might be stirred. Inside the house, the days had slowed. We had run out of tasks without quite realizing it. The boxes had been labeled, the closets emptied, the drawers were cleaned and left ajar. What remained was stillness. Not idleness, but the strange quiet that comes when even the weight of the past has begun to settle. We no longer moved with the same quiet urgency. We drifted in and out of rooms without reason, sometimes lingering over nothing, sometimes walking entire circuits of the house just to find ourselves back where we started. He had stopped asking with his presence. I had stopped answering with mine. We simply shared the same roof and the same hours. There was no tension, just an absence of anything left to hold between us. Sometimes he would leave the door open to a room he had just been in, and I would walk by without closing it. Sometimes I would leave the window cracked at night, and in the morning it would be shut. Small gestures, nothing worth noting, yet everything marked in silence. By the end of the week, the attic was empty. The kitchen held only what was meant to stay: a few cups, a pan, and a folded towel by the sink. The walls looked oddly bare now that the small fixtures of life had been removed. Each room echoed more. Each corner breathed a little louder. The light had grown softer, less filtered by dust. The house no longer seemed forgotten, only paused. He left early on the final morning. I heard his footsteps again, the same quiet descent of stairs, the sound of a bag brushing the doorframe. The latch clicked once. I stayed in bed, not out of laziness, but from the strange inertia of endings. Nothing more was required of me. He had not said goodbye, and I had not expected one. Some relationships are not built for ceremony. They end the way they lived, undisturbed. When the sun reached the floorboards, I rose and cleaned the kitchen. It was not an act of nostalgia, just something to do with my hands. I wiped down the table, straightened the uneven legs, and folded a dishcloth. The chipped mug was still beside the sink. I rinsed it and set it beside his plate, both now clean and unused. I closed each window in turn, letting the stillness gather again like fog settling in an open field. The coat was the last thing I touched. I found it where I had left it, hanging stiff on the chair's arm. I folded it carefully, smoothing the sleeves and pressing the loosened button into the fabric. I didn't place it in a box. I draped it across the arm again, as if the chair itself remembered her. It didn't feel like preservation. It felt like letting the house decide what remained. The keys rested in a small bowl by the entry, the same place they had always been left. I placed them there without thought, listening as they settled with a soft clink. The weight of them didn't feel like closure, just release. I stood once in the center of the living room. The walls were blank, the furniture sparse, nothing spoke. There was no echo of laughter or argument, no trace of childhood or aging. There was only space. No grief came, no sharp pang of memory. Just the absence of effort, the simple ending of something long paused. Outside, the wind had stilled. The air was cool but not biting. The grass, unmoving, offered no sound beneath my feet. I walked to the street, not looking back until I reached the edge of the property. The house stood behind me, silent again. Not abandoned, only quiet. I drove out of town the same way I came in, through the long road that curved like a question. The town receded without resistance. Trees leaned still, unmoved. The grocery store sat unchanged. I passed familiar corners without turning. There was nothing to check one last time. No window worth a second glance. In the rearview mirror, everything faded. Not into distance, but into stillness. The past didn't follow. It stayed where I had left it, folded into drawers and pressed between the floorboards.